A two-headed god so in love with war that he even fights himself. Greetings, hatchlings! We are here today to talk about a very interesting deity, the two-headed god of the orcs, Gorkamorka! That name is absolutely amazing. It certainly doesn't roll off the tongue, but it is a lot of fun. Gorkamorka, the two-headed god of the orcs, or Orooks, as they are currently known. Now, if you don't know what I'm talking about, this is Warhammer fantasy style lore we're going to be talking about today. An absolutely epic god. In all honesty, out of all of the different games that I've played, all the different fantasy I've encountered, I've never encountered the concept of a two-headed god who's at war with himself. His very nature is brutal combat. I absolutely enjoy the flavor behind this so very, very much. Now, Gorkamorka is both a two-headed god, and he is also two separate deities as well. He's either in his unified form, he's Gorkamorka, but when these forms end up fighting between each other enough, they end up tearing themselves apart. This god tears himself apart through fighting, and he ends up as both Gork and Mork, his two aspects. Now, for a lot of orcs, they kind of worship Gork and Mork interchangeably, and the way that they describe Gork and Mork is absolutely fantastic. You have Gork, who's brutal but cunning, and you have Mork, who's cunning but brutal. And you think to yourself, well, wait, so what's the difference here? Well, the difference is Mork will wait until you're not looking, and he'll hit you hard, because he is cunning but brutal. But Gork is brutal but cunning, which means he'll wait till you're looking and he'll hit you even harder. And that to me is beautiful. The flavor behind this orc god is amazing. Basically, the orcs believe that these are personal gods that they can speak to directly. They honestly don't care which one they're speaking to in terms of, oh, please help me. Whichever god they think is going to assist them in their efforts is the one that they're going to call out to. Now, they do have different aspects based on the brutal but cunning, cunning but brutal. And what it boils down to is Gork is more the god of strength and ferocity, and Mork is more the god of, if there was something like intelligent orcs and smarter orcs, the trickier, more cunning orcs, the ones that maybe spend a little, instead of just charging into the battle, they spend a little bit of time thinking about how they want to charge into battle. Those would be the differences that you would see between them. So Gorkamorka, he was created basically through the combined collective unconsciousness of the orcs. The orcs have a really interesting, magically aligned kind of collective consciousness. Instead of having like really obvious magic powers or being like consciously directing things, the gods are created through their collective subconscious belief, like forming together out of the immaterium. That's where Gorkamorka is formed, and either he came fully formed as the two-headed god, or he was two orcs that just are the oldest, strongest orcs. Because as orcs age, they get stronger and beefier and bigger. And so some people think that Gork and Mork are just the biggest, oldest orcs, and other people think that he sprung whole cloth, fully two-headed, out of the immaterium as a creation of the Wah energy that exists around orcs. The orcs have what is called the Great Wah! I love the way they do it. So the idea behind this collective unconscious energy is that orc technology and all this stuff that actually absolutely wouldn't work, works just because they believe it does. That's how it works for the orcs. So it doesn't matter what reality is. What matters is their belief. So their technology won't actually work for anybody else. They can do all kinds of crazy things to their guns, and they will work because that's what the orcs believe will work. And because of that belief and the collective wog magic makes it actually the case. It basically enforces whatever they believe. So they believe that explosives that have been painted are more explosive, and thus it is true. And they believe that red ones go faster, which means they paint all their wagons and everything red, and they do actually travel faster as a result. Now, this extends to their gods. Their gods are all powerful because they believe it, and they believe that their gods can be defeated but never completely destroyed, which makes their gods particularly potent because they literally are indestructible. In fact, Gorkamorka's biggest weakness is Gorkamorka himself. He is addicted, absolutely addicted to fighting and war. That's what he is all about. Now, there are a number of different ideas going around, bandied about around by the orcs as to why Sigmar and Gorkamorka ended up becoming allies. They like to talk about these contests of strength that happen between Sigmar and Gorkamorka. And if you don't know, Sigmar is another god. He's a god of order. You could also consider him maybe like the god of thunder and lightning as well, because he hurls lightning bolts and like blasts lightning out. So Gorkamorka isn't somebody who is swayed by words. You can't talk him into anything, right? It doesn't work. You have to show to him that you're worthwhile. So according to the orcs, Sigmar and Gorkamorka engaged in contests of strength. Things like an eating contest where Sigmar ate a mountain, a big old fiery volcanic mountain. He ate the whole thing down. So Gorkamorka turned around and he drank an entire ocean. And then Sigmar inhaled the sky and he had all this lightning and thunder blasting out of his throat. And what did Gorkamorka turn around and do? He consumed the entire vast kingdom of Thrun, and all the people that lived in that kingdom still exist inside Gorkamorka's belly to this day. These are the sort of stories that the orcs tell. They say that they arm wrestled and it ended up shattering mountains with their arm wrestling and creating lakes. And then eventually it ended when Gorkamorka stole Sigmar's hammer, slammed him with it, and sent him careening across all 8 of the known realms. And afterwards, since he survived, Gorkamorka decided, you know what, you're tough enough, we'll be friends. Now, that's not actually what really happened. What happened was Sigmar, with the aid of Dracothian, who is his mighty steed, his mighty Drake steed, who also bequeathed him gifts as well, and is a god in his own right. Dracothian is also a god who's allied with Sigmar, but is his steed too. Very, very cool stuff. So Sigmar actually found Gorkamorka trapped within an amber mass of Drakatoa, who is essentially a living avalanche. So Gorkamorka was suspended in the amber, where he could not bring his cunningness or his great strength and ferocity to bear. He was trapped. So Sigmar decided to free Gorkamorka. Now, Gorkamorka didn't take too kindly to this. Gorkamorka knows only one thing: rage! So his response to that was to actually club Dracothian and knock him out. And Sigmar went crazy after this because Gorkamorka just basically knocked him out in one blow. So Sigmar turned around and went, dude, I just helped you. What are you doing? I mean, this is obviously my words, not his. And so Sigmar's like, no, we're doing this. And he grabbed his hammer and started going at Gorkamorka. So they ended up in a 12-day battle that shook the mortal realms. It destroyed the mountains of Miraz, created the Gouge Canyons, and a whole bunch of crazy epic level mythic beasts came and watched the fight. Even like dread enemies, I'm not sure what the Sunworm and Shaggoth are, but apparently they're enemies, and they stood side by side to go ahead and watch this. Now, eventually, they both started to get weary. I mean, this is almost 2 weeks straight of fighting, and even gods have their limits. So they started to get tired, started to look around, and they saw how ruined everything was. They saw the audience of these epic monsters that had come to watch this titanic struggle of the gods, and basically they both started busting a gut laughing. The entire scenario just made them both start laughing. At this point, Gorkamorka realized he had found someone who was as insane for battle as he was, and was also capable of bringing that level of battle to him. They literally battled for 12 days straight. So at that point, Gorkamorka then became friends with Sigmar. Sigmar brought him into the pantheon of the gods that were serving Sigmar, essentially. And since Gorkamorka always wanted to be out battling, Sigmar would send him out on all. He would basically give him busy work of going and destroying certain monsters, get into these kind of fights, do this. But after a while, Gorkamorka got tired of all the order and the laws, and he got tired of the other gods and all their rules. And so that's when he did, brah! He yelled a big old wah yell, and he started a massive crusade, drawing all the orcs to him. And the more orcs they get together, the more potent the wah magic energy becomes. And they rampaged all the way across the 8 realms. They went across the 8 realms, leveling everything they came across. They destroyed civilization after civilization after civilization. And then once they reached the edge of eternity, he turned back and he went back again the other way, just destroying, and did it. He just basically did a repeat. Oh, did you rebuild your civilizations? Excellent. More for me to smash. It's so excellent. Now, one of the downsides to Gorkamorka doing this is Gorkamorka is really powerful. Honestly, if Gork and Mork inside Gorkamorka could just stop squabbling with each other and could fully agree on something, they would probably be the most unstoppable gods of the entire Warhammer world because of the inherent belief magic of the orcs, which is such a cool thing, honestly. I love that it's like, you know how they're, what is the effect called? It's like a placebo effect where you think something's happening and your body will actually make it happen. Orcs magic is like that, where their make-believe affects full-on reality. So it's so very dope. Now, after a while, Gorkamorka got angry because the Chaos Gods were mucking about, and he thought that they were trying to either wipe out the orcs or enslave the orcs. And the orcs and goblins and such are worshippers of Gorkamorka. They are his children. So he started to smash his fists down into the realm of chaos, into the realm of Gur. And his fist is like the size of a continent. So he was just smashing down different continents, bam, bam, bam. And one of these times that he smashed down, a fragment of his knuckle bone was left behind. And that actually was seared away with green fire to reveal the hulking mega boss known as Gordrak, the Fist of Gork. Gordrak is obviously a massive orc war boss. Now, there are other aspects of Gorkamorka that are worshipped by different subsets. Like, for example, there's the spider god aspect of Gorkamorka that's worshipped by the spider fang grots, and grots are tiny little things that the orcs just kind of use as cannon fodder. They're nothings. But their shamans believe that the spider god came about when a regular spider, well, not a regular spider, but like a regular non-magical but still great massive spider, bit one of the toes of Gorkamorka and drew some of his essence into the spider. And this just happened while Gorkamorka was stomping across the realms. Now, he didn't even notice the bite, obviously, or he would have completely crushed the spider. But it doesn't matter because the spider was infected with his power, becoming an aspect of the god. The big bosses of the spider fang, they end up actually being imbued with spider power by spending their lives ingesting toxin from spiders, and they gain the blessing of this aspect of Gorkamorka. There are aspects of Gorkamorka that are worshipped by different subsets of the ogres as well, beast claw riders, and even the fire bellies, the fire-breathing ogres worship the sun eater aspect of Gorkamorka, and that was born when Gorkamorka hunted down a sun and ate a part of it, giving himself the ability to belch fire. How epic is that? And the way that they portray Gork and Mork, there's a couple of different things that I like. One is they have these things called the Fist of Gork and the Fist of Mork, okay? And they are these gigantic, hulking, lumbering machines, and they each have like orc faces on them. One will have a big orc face with tusks jutting up, and the other will have the tusks, instead of tusks, they're basically like horns down on the one side. So you have Mork, who has the tusks down here, and you have Gork, who has the horns down here. And I'll show you that. I've got a picture here of two of these gigantic fists of Gork and Mork. That's what they are, like the Gorkanaut and the Morkanaut. Now, these things are excellent examples. These are actually models from the game Warhammer, by the way. These are excellent models of orc technology. You look at it, and they look like ramshackled, slammed together things, and it's because they are. They're put together based on belief, right? These things only work because the orcs believe them. And there are a couple of aspects of, like, you can't find really any good images of Mork and Gork together in terms of being Gorkamorka, but you can find a couple cool images of them as separate beings. And this is actually what ended when they were rampaging across the 8 realms and then rampaging back. What ended it was Gork and Mork inside just getting into a fight with each other again, not being able to agree on things and tearing themselves apart into their two elements. And even when they're separate, they're still constantly fighting, just constantly. There's this old black and white drawing of them that has them up above the mountaintops, and you can see one like kind of rushing and lifting the other up while the other one slamming his elbow down into it, boom, because they're evenly matched, right? They're evenly matched in different ways, which I genuinely enjoy. And there's another piece of artwork that I found that I'll show you here that's in color. And this shows them backdropped against the actual universe. So they're somewhere out in space, and it's just the two of them. And they look, you got one yellow, you got one blue, one's Gork, one's Mork, and they look equally matched, right? They look like pretty much the exact same being, just colored differently. You wouldn't be able to tell them apart. I genuinely enjoy the flavor behind this. He's an absolutely epic god. They're an absolutely epic god set. It's a lot of fun to say Gorkamorka, and I can't get over how orcs, everything works for them just because they believe it does. So it doesn't matter how ridiculous the things they believe are. That's how it works. And the same extends to their gods. So epic. Now, let us go ahead and check in with the hatchlings.
And together,
we are the
hatchlings!
Meow.
There's just one thing left to do now, and that is to roll the golden scroll. The golden hatchlings! The people who have my back on Patreon and through channel memberships. Thank you very much for supporting my channel. Very meaningful to me. And we are welcoming a new member. Welcome aboard, Breeze! Just recently found the channel and already hopped onto the Patreon. So thanks very much for that. Glad to have you aboard. You will see your name at the end of the scroll. Now, what do I have for you at the end here? You can choose either between, I've got some other Warhammer lore if you want to talk about that, or we can talk about some interesting magic lore. Your choice. Click on whatever you want. They may not match the hands because YouTube changed the way I do things, so I can't actually see myself for this end part anymore. Thanks, YouTube. All right, I'm leaving. Bye-bye. Hail to the king, baby.